And I got
Okay.
one more hit.
Give that to Assassin then.
Give it to me anyhow when I have a 1 UT and a 1 V. How
Oh,
rude. Without my
hybrid.
consent.
Oh shoot, that's right.
Oh,
Hybrid
you
Mania
almost
door.
just walked in front of me.
Oh gosh.
Hybrid.
Oh, I'm 1 HP. I'm dead. Yeah, this isn't really the type of situation you want to find yourself in. Well, when you don't prepare and plan ahead and, have a good strategy going into a level, it's pretty common that you'll find yourself on the brink of death like my group and I did right there. So let's talk about some strategies when it comes to alternate R4D1. That way, you and your teammates can safely make it all the way back to extraction. Hello everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to the alternate R4D1 level guide. Like always, we're starting off with your loadout, and this time around, I recommend you bring along with you a bio tracker and 3 burst and or sniper sentries. Yeah, it's been a little while since we've last done a triple sentry loadout. So the reason why I recommend the bio tracker is because even though this is a reactor mission and we're going to be doing a lot of tower defensing, we're also going to be running throughout many different zones looking for resources to resupply with, dealing with enemies who are sleeping inside of them, and also keeping an eye out for terminals. That way we can figure out what our reactor code is and move from one wave onto the next. So having a bio tracker with us, that way we know where the scouts are located and just in general how many enemies are in the next room before we run headfirst into it, especially in some of those zones that aren't fully well lit. It's a pretty nice thing to have. And we also might be running some sniper sentries, and those are benefited by biotracker symbiosis, so another good reason to bring a biotracker with us. As for the triple sentries, I'm recommending burst and or sniper sentries because we're going to be defending on that bridge room before the reactor since we can't really get a super easy one-way funnel, so we want sentries that are good at mid to long range combat, which automatically negates the auto and shotgun sentry as those are meant for close range combat, not mid to long range. As for which types you want, really it's up to you and your team. I will usually bring with me 1 sniper sentry and 2 burst sentries, but I've also done this level with 3 burst or 3 sniper, so any combination of these two will get you through it as long as you're positioning them in a decent spot. Keep in mind that sniper sentries do have a pretty slow rate of fire unless you're constantly tagging enemies, and when enemies are coming at you from multiple different directions, it's not really possible to be tagging every single one of them, so be a little bit cautious with your position of these sniper sentries. As for your weapons, for the most part you can take whatever you feel like. I like to take mid to long range weapons as I try to kill enemies before they get too close to me, especially when it comes to the hybrids and giant chargers you'll be seeing later on in the reactor. If your entire team is running something like shotguns or just weapons that aren't good at mid to long range combat, you might be risking it a bit because you're pretty much letting a bunch of very powerful enemies that you don't want to get too close to you get really close to you. So maybe having a sniper rifle or hell rifle or hell guns or just anything else like that might make things a little bit easier for you and your team. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to find the reactor inside zone 62 and make sure it's fully back online before you leave. And you and your teammates are going to be starting off inside zone 60. In here, there aren't going to be any resources for you to collect, but there will be some enemies, both smalls and bigs, for you to deal with, as well as your bulkhead door control and door to the secondary objective. However, we are unable to obtain our one and only bulkhead key in this level until we've basically finished the entirety of the main objective, so we'll have to come back here a bit later. So go throughout the zone, deal with all the enemies right here and now, and then once everything is dead, head over to the security door to zone 61. This door doesn't have a scan tied to it, so you can just open it up when you're ready to go. Inside zone 61, there will never be any enemies or resources for you to collect. It's basically just a transition zone, and at the back end of it, you'll find the security door to zone 62. This door just simply having a full team scan tied to it. Once the scan is finished, you can open up the door and head inside the room with the reactor terminal in the middle of it. In here, there will be a few enemies, usually giant strikers or giant shooters or hybrids, so go throughout the area and deal with them one by one, and also keep an eye out for the resources as there will be a few of them in here. Then once you and your team are good to go, you can go to the reactor terminal, put the startup command into it, and get started on the reactor sequence itself. Now, before we go into every single zone one by one, let's talk about a little bit of the reactor information first. So, starting off, this reactor will have a total of 4 different waves you're going to have to deal with, and every single one of the codes you need to move from one wave onto the next will be located in some zone on a random terminal. So, none of the codes are going to be given to you for free at the top of your screen. As for defense location, like I mentioned earlier in the loadout portion of this guide, ideally you're going to want to be defending pretty much on the bridge right before the reactor, so inside zone 61, either somewhere towards maybe the middle of it or near the security door that leads into the reactor itself. I typically defend near that security door, and then I'll have on the first wave all 3 of my sentries, or at least 1 or 2 of them, facing down the bridge, as every single enemy has to come from the east. But after we deal with the first wave, since we're opening up new spawn locations to the north, the west, and the south eventually, we're going to have enemies coming at us from the east along that bridge, and also to the west from multiple different areas in the reactor room. But as you can sort of see in the background footage, a real easy way to deal with this is just have 1 sentry, preferably a sniper sentry, on the bridge facing towards the east. So if anything comes from that direction, you'll hear that sentry activate and you can quickly turn around and deal with them. And then have your other 2 sentries sort of crisscross facing into the reactor room. That way, if they come from the northern portion of it, the southern portion, or the western portion, 1 or both of your sentries will start shooting at them, and you and your teammates can primarily focus on dealing with enemies from this direction. You're not going to have a super nice one-way easy funnel for this reactor, but that's no big deal. You've got 3 sentries and 4 people who are capable of shooting at enemies, and for the most part, it's just 2 general locations, reactor room and to the far east. So not too hard to defend if you keep your head on a swivel. As for the reactor waves themselves, they are all fairly similar, but they do get a little bit more difficult the further we go into it. Wave 1 is only going to consist of regular strikers and shooters, a few giant strikers, as well as a few hybrids. Those hybrids being the biggest concern of them all because they will beam you and your entire team down quickly if you don't get rid of them. So if somebody on your team is running a sniper rifle, the moment you see them, you should be popping their heads and getting rid of them as fast as you possibly can. When it comes to the second wave, it's going to be the same thing, regular strikers and shooters, as well as giant strikers and hybrids. However, towards the tail end of it, you are going to get a few regular chargers, so keep an eye out for them. The third wave is going to be the exact same as the second one, just simply a few more hybrids and chargers than there were in the second wave. But the fourth and final wave is going to shake things up just a little bit. We're no longer going to have giant strikers in the mix, but they are going to be replaced with giant chargers, which are far more terrifying in my opinion. So be very careful when you get about halfway through the fourth wave, as that's when the giant chargers are going to start spawning in, and you need to deal with them very quickly before they get too close to your team. One giant charger in the middle of your group within melee distance can very quickly down multiple people. Now that you know where to defend and what type of enemies you can expect to see, we can start talking about the actual zones themselves and where you're going to be going after every single one of the waves. So once you're done defending against the very first wave, you're then going to want to head to the northern end of the reactor room to the security door to zone 63, which will automatically open up after the first wave is completed. That zone itself is going to be a long rectangular room. There will be a few regular strikers and shooters in here, as well as some resources. But I recommend you don't grab these resources quite yet, because you're going to want to go to the far northern end of it where you'll find the security door to zone 64, which has a full team scan tied to it. Inside zone 64, there will be enemies, both smalls and bigs, as well as even more resources, and usually what I like to do is grab these resources first, as the combined amount of resources in 63 and 64 is usually too much for us to actually utilize every single one of them right here and now. So I get all the ones inside zone 64 first, and if I still need anything, then I'll grab it in 63. Doing this will allow me to leave some of the resources in 63B, so if I desperately need something, it's not too far away from the reactor, so I could potentially quickly run in there, grab it, and then get back to my defending location. As for the zone itself, you can see with this little map overlay, there are 2 different terminals inside zone 64. Once I enter into the zone, I typically take a right, check that first terminal. If that's not the one, I'll head to the far northern end, and that should be the one. Once you figure out what your code is, you got all the resources you need, go back to the reactor terminal, put the command into it, and then head out back into the bridge room to get ready to defend against the second wave. Once you are done dealing with the second wave, the security door to zone 65, which is found to the far western end of the reactor room, will automatically open up. Inside that room, it's going to be a long bridge room similar to the one you've been holding out on, and in there will be more resources for you to collect, although once again, you probably don't want to touch these quite yet, and they are going to be guarded by 2 regular scouts and no other type of enemies. So deal with the scouts and then just open up boxes of lockers so you know where resources are. If you desperately need ammunition, then by all means go on ahead and use a little bit of it. But once you're good to go to the far western side of that bridge room where you'll find the security door to zone 66. This door is going to have a full team scan tied to it, and then afterwards you're going to have to open it up and deal with the blood door portion itself. If you happen to come across an explosive mine or 2, then use them right here now. This is the best place for them. If not, no big deal. Just place down all 3 of your sentries facing towards the blood door and open up and fall back a bit, as this blood door is connected to a fairly big room, so you'll probably get a lot of regular strikers and shooters and maybe even some giants coming in. And also, this blood door seems to spawn in a lot of hybrids. As you can see in the background footage, my team struggled a little bit with it because we did not place down any of our sentries, and we all forgot just how many hybrids spawn in from this. Thankfully, we were able to recover, but it did waste a fair amount of our time. So try to not make the same mistake if you can avoid it. Once you're done with the blood door though, you can head into the zone. Zone 66 will have some regular strikers and shooters, as well as some giants in there. There'll be even more resources. And as you can see with the map, there are once again 2 different terminals. One of them which you can find if you go to the right immediately upon entering into the zone and going into that northern room. The other terminal being at the far western side next to a security door, which we'll be heading into later. So go throughout the zone, grab resources, and just get everything done in here. And just like before, once you have everything you need and that second code, head back to the reactor terminal, put it in, and get ready to defend against the third wave. Once you have dealt with the entirety of the third wave, you're now going to be heading to the southern end of the reactor to the security door to zone 68. Like before, this one is going to automatically open up, so when you go near it, be careful not to shoot, or if you want to, you actually could shoot and just simply pull the room. As zone 68 will be mostly covered in fog, and there will be a fair amount of chargers in here, so I actually like to pull this room. That way I could just let them all come to me, kill them near the entrance to the security door, and then once they're all dead, I could very quickly make my way through the room. And again, just like before, there will be resources in here, but I recommend you don't touch too many of them. Instead, get to the far southern end where you find the security door to zone 69, which is just going to simply be a full team scan. Be careful in there though, because the entirety of the zone will be covered in pitch black darkness, and there are going to be a fair amount of regular strikers and shooters, as well as some chargers in this zone, and the chargers can be pretty difficult to see in this darkness. As for the terminals, as you can see with this map overlay, once again, there are 2 of them inside the zone, and upon entering in, if you just go to the left of you, as soon as you open up that door, one of your terminals is right there, and if that isn't it, you just have to head to the southwestern side of that room, and you'll be able to find your second terminal. You do not have to head into the third room by any means in order to get your reactor code, although I find most of the time the resources in the zone like to spawn in that third room, so you might want to go down there and grab those, as there are usually a fair amount of them in this location. Once you have everything though, head back to the reactor terminal, put your third code in, and that will move you on to the 4th and final wave. And once you have finished defending against the 4th wave, you're going to want to head all the way back to the far western side of the level, because way back in that zone, you're going to be able to find a security door to zone 67. This door though is going to have a class 4 alarm tied to it, so let's take a look at a map overlay. As you can see, there's only one location that enemies could possibly spawn from, and even though there are 2 doors that lead into your room, you're going to want to make sure the northern door is shut and the southern one is left open. That way every single one of the enemies during the alarm will funnel in through there. As for your sentries, you just simply place all 3 of them in the room facing towards that door, and you should be good. Scans can go all over the place in this room, so it might take you a little bit of time to finish this alarm, but thankfully, you are given plenty of time to get this 4th and final code, so get to work on the scans. Maybe have one person who prioritizes on defending and helping out the sentries, probably the biotracker person, that way biotracker symbiosis is active for the sniper sentries, and once you finish every single one of the sets of scans, make sure every single enemy from the alarm is dead before you open up that door, because inside zone 67, there will be nothing but giant strikers, chargers, and a total of 5 different scouts. And this is all one big open room, so if you wake up anything and it screams, the entirety of the room is going to alert. So either you're going to want to sneak your way through here and make your way towards the terminals, and once you know the code, just have one person go back to the reactor terminal and put it in immediately to end the reactor sequence, or if you just can't be bothered and you have plenty of ammunition, just simply pull the room. I don't typically like doing this method, but I can't deny that there are so many resources in this level that you can just simply pull the room and you'll be perfectly fine for the most part, because all those enemies are going to be just like the alarm door where they have to come in through that open door. So as long as it's still open, your sentries are right there, they will deal with a fair amount of the enemies for you, and all you have to do is just prioritize on dealing with the enemies coming out from zone 67 itself. And then once everything is dead, one person could go in to get the reactor code, while the other 3 people just stay outside with the sentries and defend out there. So yeah, it's really up to you and your team. You can either just pull the room if you got the resources to deal with it, or you could just sneak through. As for your terminals, as you can see with this map overlay, there's actually a total of 3 of them in this room, one at the far northern end of the room, one that's up above on the catwalks on the northwestern portion, and one that's on the southern portion of the room down below on ground floor. So sneak your way through here or go loud, whatever it is, and as soon as you know that 4th code, go on ahead and put it in, because that will shut down the reactor sequence, so no more waves of enemies will spawn in from this point on. And if you're only going for a main objective run, that is literally the end of the level. All you have to do is go back to the beginning where your extraction scan is, hop into it, and just wait there for a little bit. There is no extraction alarm, so you just simply sit on it, and as soon as it gets to 100%, you're done. But if you and your team are also planning on doing the secondary objective, there's a little bit more we have to do. So what you're going to want to do is go back into zone 67 if you haven't already, and find that first bulkhead key, as it will always be located somewhere inside of there. Then before you head off to the secondary objective, you're going to want to go through any of the zones you've gone through up to this point and grab resources and fully top off your team. Heal everybody up as much as you can, make sure everybody's ammunition is looking good, fill up the sentries all the way, and then hold on to any resource packs that are left over. And you're also going to want to keep an eye out for some seafoam grenades and seafoam trip mines, as there are usually plenty of them, and you're ideally going to want 3 or 4 of them for the remainder of this level, as we are going to have to deal with a few berthers, and berthers can be killed really easily if you have a seafoam grenade or a seafoam trip mine. But once you have everything that you need, head all the way back to zone 60, go to the bulkhead door control and plug your key into it, do the full team scan that's associated to that, and that will unlock the bulkhead door to zone 368. The bulkhead door to zone 368 can just simply be opened up without even dealing with a scan first, and upon entering into that zone, you're going to see that your secondary objective is to find a specific terminal and put a command into it, and that terminal will always be located inside zone 370. As for zone 368 itself, not really a whole lot to it, just some enemies to deal with as well as a few resources, and in here you'll also be able to find the security door to zone 369. This door is just simply going to have a full team scan tied to it. However, something to be a little bit cautious of is once you open up that security door, a loud screech is going to go out and everything inside zone 369 is automatically going to wake up. What's going to be in there for the most part are going to be a fair amount of giant strikers, usually about 4 or 5 if I recall correctly, as well as a single berther. So what I recommend you do is just place your sentries towards that door before you open it up, that way it can shoot at anything that's coming after you, and then you're just going to want to stay outside a bit. You're going to want to let the giant strikers come to you and just shoot them down from a distance, or let your sentries take care of them. And then once everything is dead, aside from the berther, you can either wait for her to rush you, in which case you can have a seafoam grenade or trip mine waiting for her to make quick work of her, or you could just simply rush right on in after her. 1 or 2 people focus on shooting the babies that she'll spawn in, while the other people just simply shoot her in the tumors, and you shouldn't really have too much difficulty in dealing with this berther. And once she and everything else is dead, you can just go throughout that zone, grab any resources from in there to resupply a little bit, and then head to the far eastern side of it where you'll find a security door to zone 370. This security door is pretty much the exact same as 369's door, it's just going to be simply a full team scan, but once you open it up, another screech is going to go out and it'll wake up everything inside zone 370. In there, it's going to be even more giant strikers. Again, I think usually there's 5 or 6 of them in that zone, and instead of 1 berther, there's actually going to be 2 of them. One of them is going to be right there in front of you as you open up the door, while the second one is going to be up above on the catwalks. If there are no enemies near that first berther, then what I'll do is I'll just rush into the room, seafoam grenade her, and shoot her to death, and then quickly book it out of the zone and fall back behind my sentries. Or if there's a few giant strikers next to her, I will just simply let the door open up, make sure that I'm nowhere near so the berther cannot see me and give birth to all those baby strikers, and I'll let the sentries do some good work against the giants as they come out, and then I'll shoot them down as well. Then you just simply have to play a little bit of a waiting game for the berthers to come near that open security door or finally rush out of it, and then just do the same thing as before. One person on your team will seafoam one of the berthers while somebody else will seafoam the second one, and once they're both seafoamed, you just simply have to kill them before they break out. You should have plenty of resources in the level to be able to tank a fair amount of hits from all those baby strikers, so as long as you're all looking pretty healthy before you open up this door, you shouldn't have too much difficulty with it. The big thing is just make sure you're utilizing seafoam grenades and seafoam trip mines, and you're actually taking advantage of the berthers when they are on cooldown and they're really unable to defend themselves. But once everything from inside the zone is dead, you can head into it, and at the far eastern side down below, you'll be able to find a terminal. Once you put the command into it, a full team scan will appear, and once a full team scan is completed, your secondary objective is done. No more enemies are going to spawn in, there's no extraction alarm or anything like that. All you have to do now is just head back to the beginning of the level to zone 60, hop into the extraction scan and wait there for a little bit. And once your scan gets to 100%, you're done and you have completed alternate R4D1. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R4D1 is very similar to the original version, but I enjoy this one much more due to some of the changes. Not having that one-way funnel to make defending against the reactor waves super simple and easy is a great change in my eyes. I prefer reactors, where the difficulty is found more so in defending and not in searching for the codes, at least, to not have those easy one-way funnels. Because if they do, hell weapons are just going to make all those enemies come after you an absolute joke to deal with. The original R4D1 was a lot of fun and I definitely enjoyed that level, but I did feel like it was a little bit too easy because of the one-way funnel that existed in it. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, we only have one more level to go before Alternate Rundown 4's finale, so let's keep this train a-rolling, and hopefully, I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.